It's time for the return of Marvel in the 90s. And today we're talking about the new Fantastic Four. Dun dun dun. So the new Fantastic Four is basically a 3-issue story from Fantastic Four Volume 1, 347, 348, and 349. This is where the new Fantastic Four first started, comprising themselves of Hulk, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, and Spider-Man. A lot of people read this book. At the time, Walt Simonson was doing an amazing run on Fantastic Four, but the sales weren't quite there. This really helped increase those sales. Both issues 347 and 348 went into second printings, and Art Adams came in on the artwork. The story involves Delilah, who is a Skrull. She crash lands on Earth. Then the Skrulls are obviously now coming after her. It turns out that she is a rebel to the Empire, and she has crash landed on Earth to try to find this ancient weapon, Skrull technology that's been buried on Earth in the form of an egg in some location. Using technology, the Skrulls locate the source of... They're trying to find Delilah, but they also find multiple Skrull sources on Monster Isle. Turns out that the monsters on Monster Island actually share a lot of the same traits as Skrulls. So they wind up on Monster Island, which of course leads us to the Mole Man. So now you got the Mole Man involved. So you got the Skrulls going after a rebel on Earth, on Monster Island now, and the Mole Man gets involved. And look at that beautiful Art Adams artwork. Fire. Look at the detail on that nasty-ass Mole Man. All right, so Delilah gets into Four Freedoms Plaza, because at this time there was no Baxter Building. It was Four Freedoms Plaza. That's how it was when I pretty much first started reading Fantastic Four. And she starts impersonating certain characters that Fantastic Four members have attachments to and knocks them out. She's able to do this because she's a slight empath and telepath, as well as a Skrull shapeshifter. So then she sends out a telepathic call to the certain heroes that would fit certain roles, I guess. But answering the call is Spider-Man, the Hulk, who is gray at this time, as you'll notice, and Wolverine. And the fourth member, Ghost Rider. This was the first time I ever read a comic book with Ghost Rider, and it blew me away. I loved it so much. Look at that dynamic panel work and perspective from Art Adams. So she is now impersonating Susan Storm, and she is pretending like she went out shopping and came home, and Skrulls had killed the Fantastic Four. So she convinces Hulk, Spidey, Wolvie, and Ghost Rider that the Fantastic Four are dead, and they have to avenge their deaths. And she uses her telepathy to give them a bloodlust for the Skrulls. So thus the new Fantastic Four are formed. Once again, look at that beautiful Art Adams artwork. Wolverine's got some crazy thighs. They kind of all do, don't they? Meanwhile, she reactivates Reed Richards, and she uses his scientific know-how while entrancing him with her telepathy. What? Telepathy? And she's doing that, and she needs his help, right? So the new Fantastic Four go out, and they're trying to find these Skrull vibrations through this technology. It brings them across these monsters. I'm just showing you this because that Art Adams artwork, I remember being a kid reading this stuff and absolutely loving it. The way that the new Fantastic Four worked together, they were already four of Marvel's most popular characters of the time, but the way their personalities clashed against one another and the new mystery of who Ghost Rider is was absolutely a slam bang slam dunk. Slam bang slam dunk? Anyway, this leads them to Monster Island, where they come up against the Mole Man and make a slight truce with him. Then they run into the Skrulls, and y'all, this was the first time I ever saw the pennant stare of Ghost Rider, and it's always been emblazoned in my mind. So then Delilah shows up with Reed Richards, and there's the egg right there about to hatch. It has this, like, technological life form that's going to imprint on the first person that it comes in contact with, and it's an unstoppable force. So what happens is the Skrulls want it, Delilah wants it, and of course now the Mole Man wants it. Meanwhile, the Fantastic Four, locked away in Four Freedoms Plaza, are rescued by Franklin. Go Franklin. Without his powers at this time. Oh, and you'll also notice that Ben Grimm is not the Thing right now. He actually wore a suit. He was human, wore a Thing suit. That is Sharon Ventura as the She-Thing. And that's Alicia down there, who is married to Johnny Storm, who we don't realize yet, but in not too long, like within 10 issues, we're going to find out that she is in fact a Skrull impersonator named Elijah. And Johnny's the one with the asbestos bag over his head. But go Franklin. So the new Fantastic Four and the original OG Fantastic Four, albeit a little bit different for this time in the 90s, before it went a little bit more classic in a few issues, with the advent of the Tom DeFalco, Paul Ryan run, which I absolutely adore. So now you get all these forces together after what is going to hatch out of this egg. And then Delilah, there she is in her Skrull form, completely revealing herself. And then she just recently, I think, has been coming back in the Empire tie-ins with Fantastic Four. And that's why they're calling out to the original OG new Fantastic Four again. So that is what hatches out of the egg. It's this technological form, and it imprints on one of Mole Man's monsters. So everybody feels cheated, and then they have this crazy final battle, and the monster has its new baby, and it's kind of goofy and funny, and it's got a quirkiness that Walt Simonson brought to the FF that really attributed a lot to the Kirby and Lee days. So Delilah's all crazy. She thinks she's got Reed under her spell, but Reed has actually broken her spell. Reed punches her out, makes up with Sue, and then the Ghost Rider, Pennant stares her into, like, insanity, basically. And then the Skrulls are just like, what are we going to do? The Mole Man's like, oh, I'm so pissed. And then Spidey's like, yo, man, you know, what's going to happen? And then it just very much abruptly ends with them leaving and everybody going their separate ways. And then there's the Punisher randomly flying over this island, and he's like, oh, there's the Fantastic Four. He's about to blow the island away. And then he just sees the Fantastic Four, and he's like, oh, no, they got it handled. Anyway, that's the saga of the new Fantastic Four. They did show back up a few times here and there, more in particular in 374, where they have to go up against Johnny and the Fantastic Four, and Wolverine actually slashes Thing's face. I should have put that up here, but I didn't. So there you go. That's the new Fantastic Four. It's a great Fantastic Four story. And how inappropriate would I be if I got this far into Marvel of the 90s and did not do a Fantastic Four-centric episode? So here are my original copies here. There's my 347, the start of the story. Great Art Adams artwork, a great Walt Simonson story. It promises you it's the world's goofiest comic magazine. It does that for a reason. There's my 348. I actually bought this a few years ago because the original copy I had was the second printing. Now, there's a second printing of 347, which is copper colored. I don't have that. I need to get that. But there's the first print of 348 with that iconic cover. And here's the second print, which is gold. This is the one I had as a kid, and I loved it. And then it all wraps up in issue 349. An oddly colored cover, but an exceptionally well done and drawn cover. Overall, I like this story. I like it a lot. Fantastic Four sales have been slow for a long time. They were Marvel's dominant force in the 60s. And then in the 70s, interest started waning. But in the 80s, it kind of got revitalized a little bit with the run of John Byrne. But that was mostly comic book snobs that were into that stuff. And then in the 90s, there was just nothing that was going on. It kind of went through a really bad period post-John Byrne. But then Walt Simonson came in and did most of the artwork himself. His run was like 18 or 19 issues. But it's really solid. In his first run, they Reed invents a time sled, and they go through time, and they get like the time variance authority against them. And it's so crazy, kooky, and weird, and wild. And there's a lot of stuff that was already set in place. Like Ben Grimm is human again, but he's piloting a Thing suit, right? Which is weird. Sharon Ventura, his girlfriend, is the She-Thing. Johnny's married to Alicia. Don't worry, she's just a Skrull. But when they did this, Art Adams came on, and they brought in the most popular characters. Wolverine, Hulk, Ghost Rider, Spidey. And sales went through the roof. They had to do those two reprints. And people really remember this run, and they really love it. And from to this, and even today, the New Fantastic Four has a legacy. It's part of the Fantastic Four legacy. I'm proud to have been the ripe age of 11 or 12 when this happened. I was totally sold on it. I loved it. And it was my first Ghost Rider comic book. And yeah, I absolutely love the New Fantastic Four run. That's a great story. It's goofy. It's kooky. And that's what Walt Simonson did. And he had a great, very severely underappreciated run on Fantastic Four. But it's definitely in the spirit of Lee and Kirby. 100%. Simonson is of the school of Kirby. And that, my friends, was Marvel in the 90s.